What's up, Bears? Eric here, and welcome to another episode of the Social Brain Rot Podcast. This is going to be episode number 3. Thank you, folks, so much for the support on episodes 1 and 2. If you did not have a chance to listen to those, please feel free to head over to my YouTube channel at Eric Debunks. Both episodes are available there or on your podcast platform of choice. It's available there as well. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please consider hitting subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Love to hear back from everyone about these issues. I do appreciate all commentary down below. So feel free to sound off in the comment section. All right, today's episode is going to be about a couple of things, primarily this new viral sensation here, which is Oliver Anthony, Richmond, north of Richmond. It's a pretty popular thing at the moment. And this is, one of those songs that I think a lot of conservative podcasters and pundits have picked up and started grifting on, platforming on. We're going to talk about this. We're also going to talk about my personal opinion on empathy when it comes to conservatives, because I've talked about this in other episodes of this podcast and also my live streams, that a lot of my family is conservative, and I've had to deal with that pretty much my entire life. So I do know quite a bit about that. And just the way they deal with struggles from other people. And it's sort of like this, I don't know, like oppressive Olympics situation where if anybody else is struggling, they have to be struggling as well. They don't do well when it comes to thinking about other people and how these problems affect other people and not just them. So before I want to talk about this, it's kind of weird to me. This is one of those situations where someone has done something, it's gone viral, and the previous viral sensation, which was the Jason Aldean "Try That in a Small Town" music video and song, has become a passing thought. And this is kind of the way things go when it comes to the conservative circles: is they find something controversial, they latch onto it, they drain it dry, and they just let it go. This song barely had any time in the spotlight. Came out, I believe, back in May, and then the music video came out because the song wasn't doing so well. The music video was, I believe, intended to be controversial. It was intended to bring eyes to the song in a way that was like, hey, we need people to see this. We want the song to be a hit. We feel like this can sort of bump it up. So they did that. They put the music video out. The song got really popular for just a bit. It says the song reached number 1 on Billboard's Top 100 during the week of July 31st and number 2 for the weeks prior to that. Try That in a Small Town has now fallen to number 21, and no one's talking about it anymore. They've literally forgotten about it. We're talking about something that was just popular, just became popular less than 30 days ago, and no one's really talking about it because they have a new anthem, and that is the song by Oliver Anthony, Richmond, north of Richmond. Now, before we talk about the song, I want to point out a little bit about Oliver Anthony from what I could find. He lives in Farmville, Virginia, off the grid. So he's someone that, by all intents and purposes, shouldn't be keeping up with like current politics and social issues. Because if he's living off the grid, then you would think that, hey, he's not really, invested in anything going on outside of his bubble. Apparently, he's done a few songs like this. One of them was called "I Gotta Get Sober." The other was "Ain't Got a Dollar," and it cultivated a small following for him. But this performance video of Richmond, north of Richmond, where he's playing his guitar in the woods with, I think, some deer behind him or something. We're not going to watch the video here because I know it'll get a copyright strike, so we're not going to do that, unfortunately. If you want to hear the song, please feel free to go check it out. I want to say that he's not bad. I don't think that he's particularly, like, I think he's got a really authentic voice. I think he seems to be very talented. There's a lot of talented people that do things that I don't necessarily agree with. I think he's very talented, which is probably why this is becoming the next thing for conservatives, because there is a talent there, and so they feel like they can sort of rally behind that. Anyway, we have some political commentators jumping on board with this, but before we talk about that, I want to just kind of go through these lyrics and sort of dive into the song, because that's what we did with Jason Aldean. So we're going to do it here today as well. So verse 1 of the song says, "I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay." I think that's, again, just like with the Jason Aldean song, it's something that everybody can sort of, understand. It is a gateway lyric into the song so that you feel right away that you have a connection with him. And a lot of great songwriters do this. Again, this is not necessarily me harping on that. People that write music, they want to get you invested into the song. The beginning of the song is very important to get you to finish listening to it. So the first couple lines do that. They pull you in with something that I think a lot of people feel like they can sort of agree with. He goes, "So I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away." All right. Pre chorus, "It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you." Now, that's quite interesting. Um, that can be taken several different ways. However, based on the target audience for this kind of music and this song, I would say he's probably singing to people like him because he says, "For people like me," and then he pulls them in, "people like you," right? Which that's the target audience. The people that are standing behind the song are exactly the people that he is speaking to with these lyrics. And that would be primarily people like him, white people in rural areas who feel like progress, diversity, things like that, um, that's the way the world's heading for them. They're trying to pull out this victim card in a sense. He says, "I wish I could wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is." So he is another person who wants a fantasy world where the things outside of his bubble just go away because it's about him and people like him. Those are the people that he's speaking to here. Those are the people he's trying to get to rally behind him. And it seems like he's been able to do that. Now, here's the chorus. It goes, "Living in the new world with an old soul." Interesting. Very, very interesting. Poetic as it is. "These rich men north of Richmond," which are speaking obviously of the people in government. It's a political sort of dog whistle there. "Lord knows they all want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do. And they don't think you know, but I know that you do, because your dollar ain't shit and it's taxed to no end because of Richmond north of Richmond." So that's a political outcry. And I don't know how anybody could see that otherwise. He's literally calling out Washington, D.C. And the whole thing about living in the new world with an old soul, that is a cry back to people would say the Reagan era because of some of the other lyrics in the song. I would say it's just calling back to the, make America great again concept. It's just packaged in a new package. Packaged in a new package? It's wrapped up in a new package, basically. All right. The second verse is the one that I keep hearing a lot of, second and third verse, quite polarizing. And we're going to go through this a little bit here. It says, "I wish the politicians would look out for miners," as in the people that go inside the mountains and in the caves and mine, "and not just miners on an island somewhere." Now, I'll be honest, if that lyric was in any liberal song, this person would be, I can't even imagine the kind of stuff that would be, that would start being said about him, the kind of words he would be called, where he's trying to pull views away from the child abuse, right? He did an interview on his channel, and we're going to talk about that in a second, or not an interview. He spoke out on his channel quite a bit about this lyric. And I don't think the lyric reads the way he intended because he talks about child abuse and he sort of dog whistles like anti-gay rhetoric. Anyway, "Lord, we got folks on the street ain't got nothing to eat and the obese milk and welfare." And this is where he starts to get into social issues and social programs. The third verse goes, "Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought to not pay for your bag of fudge rounds." And we're going to stop there because the next line I think is carries into a different topic. So here's the issue. There's a lot of myths about people who get public assistance. One of the big things is that people in public assistance are lazy and overweight and unhealthy. And the reason why is because, or the myth is that they want to be that way, right? That's the system. The thing about it is that a lot of people on public assistance in the cities live in what they call food deserts. These are real things. Basically, their access to healthy foods is almost non existent. I'm not making this up. This is a real thing. So they have to buy from local shops and places that stock a lot of processed food, canned food, things like that. They do not have access to fresh foods. Now, you could say that these two issues, whether it be public assistance abuse or whatever you want to call it, and a food desert, equal into the same problem. And I would say, yes, there probably is a lot of overlap in terms of that, except for the fact that if you look into the fraud of the public healthcare system, what percentage of welfare recipients are estimated to abuse the system? The percentage of welfare recipients that are estimated to abuse the system varies by the country and specific welfare programs. In the US, the estimated percentage of fraud lies between 2 and 10% depending on the program, which isn't a large amount. Ultimately, yes, you would love a system that doesn't have any fraud in it, right? That doesn't have this skewing amount of people that decide they're going to go out and abuse the system. But I don't think there's any system that's 100% foolproof, right? You just try to negate or minimize the harm that's done by fraud when it comes to that. Um, but over here on his lyric, he's literally not even talking about that. Like he's rallying against people getting public assistance. And the thing about it is, if you look, most Americans receiving public benefits paid for them. And we're not talking about just welfare. We're talking about everything. We're talking about Social Security, talking about Medicare, things like that. Most Americans draining money from the government, according to conservatives, are people that have paid into these programs. These are programs that were designed to help out people in need. The welfare program is not the only program that is considered public assistance, which a lot of people here that are talking about this song and specifically talking about this issue are going with that myth, with that stereotype that people on welfare are gaming the system because they're lazy and they're fat, which I just showed you that that's clearly not true. It's less than 10% of the people on the program. And the people who are buying things that are unhealthy for them that are on welfare or public assistance are doing so because they're in parts of the country. And most conservatives probably wouldn't believe this, in parts of the city where grocery stores that stock fresh items are just non-existent. And I mean that. We're talking 45 minutes to an hour away from where they are. And for people that don't have vehicles, who are on public assistance where public transportation doesn't take them there, it's not an option for them. They have to buy from places that do not offer fresh foods. It's food deserts. Again, not making this up. It is absolutely a thing. And I think that should be combated first, because that would allow them to use the public assistance on foods and vegetables and things like that that they would have access to, that would make them more healthy, instead of complaining about less than 10% of the population who are on public assistance from being fat and lazy. Okay. Goes on here to say, young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because all this damn country does is keep kicking them down. Okay. I mean, that can be taken several ways. Long work hours, bad work conditions, however you want to put it. I think this one here, I don't know. I mean, it could be speaking to the military. Not totally sure. I don't think this one's quite as clear. This one could be taken several different ways. And then we just repeat pretty much the things that were said in the earlier part of the song. So again, just like with Jason Aldean, not a lot in terms of lyric quality here. It's really just a lot of veiled dog whistly things that are being said that, again, resonate with the people specifically being targeted here. Now, this is interesting here. Matt Walsh says the main reason the song resonates with so many people isn't political. It's because the song is raw and authentic. We are suffocated by artificiality. Everything around us is fake. A guy in the woods pouring his heart over his guitar is real. Now, I want to say here, this is kind of an interesting statement because, I mean, is he talking about himself? Is this him speaking to what he does? He says everything is artificial. This culture war they've created is absolutely artificial. So is he speaking about himself here? Is this Matt Walsh being sort of reflective of the content he puts out? Which, by the way, if you look at the lyrics again, there's a reason why it's appealing to right-wing influencers. Rallying against high taxes, the value of a dollar, the Reagan era talking points about welfare. So Oliver Anthony has a channel here on YouTube. I haven't watched a ton of videos, but I did watch the one where he spoke about the song. And he talks about Hank Williams Jr. being his biggest influence, saying that Hank William, being no stranger to politics, is pretty dead down the center aisle on politics and always has been. And it seems like both sides serve the same master, and that master is not someone of any good to the people of this country. So Matt Walsh saying it's not political is absolutely false. It just is. Even Oliver himself here spoke about it being political. And then in the video, he also talks about human trafficking, which when he says one of the worst things a human being can do is take advantage of a child. He goes, I think I drew the line on being quiet when I started to see it becoming normalized, and I'll leave it at that. So people would say, oh, well, he's just talking about child trafficking, right? That's everybody should be able to support that. And we go back to the whole Sound of Freedom and all that drama surrounding that film. The issue here is that child trafficking, taking advantage of a child, has never been what I would consider normalized. Like, where in media has it been normalized? If you think about it, nowhere. Nowhere is anyone trying to normalize child abuse or anything like that, unless you dive into what that actually means, which is the anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-drag dog whistles. He goes, I think I drew the line on being quiet when I started to see that becoming normalized, and I'll leave it at that. By not expressing what he actually means there and saying, I'll leave it at that, is essentially he's calling out the dog whistle itself. Because a lot of the conservative pundits, the people on the right, have tried to say that gay acceptance, trans acceptance, and drag expression would be normalizing these awful things. That's literally what it is. That is him dog whistling out to conservatives. That's what he's doing here. So acting like he's not being political because both sides are bad, but then jumping into the right and echoing right-wing talking points tells me that it absolutely is a political thing. We also have some other people here talking about it. Infra has the song about class struggle by Ain't Got a Dollar, working class Virginian who has gone viral overnight with millions of views from ordinary Americans. The masses are far ahead of the current right wing and leftist grifter ideologies who benefit from dividing the people. I will say this, it's going to be interesting to see how many right wing conservatives and right wing pundits continue to sit on the right if they're going to start rallying behind this kind of stuff. This is going to be very difficult because, believe it or not, this division between political ideologies, whether it be left or right, is kind of in the pocket of the right. So their ability to vote people into office, their ability to leverage some sort of political power comes from being a unified uh, one vision group. So this division might affect some people who are slightly left of center, but it's really going to affect people who are on the right. It's definitely going to affect that. It says here, Benny Johnson, of course. Richmond, north of Richmond, is the number one song in America. But wait, there's more. Oliver Anthony, a rural farmer, unknown just 48 hours ago, has 3 songs in the top 10. The most famous musicians are often never achieve this culture's power. Benny, do you not watch the charts? Are you not someone that watches? Anytime someone like Drake or Beyonce or anyone like that puts out an album, typically in the era of streaming, most streaming platforms have multiple songs from these artists in the top. Um, but yeah, I know you're speaking about someone unknown, but this is the whole culture thing. We talked about that with the Jason Aldean song. There's other examples of people who become the puppet or the trophy for the right that get propped up for like a blink of an eye and then they go away. We'll see. We'll see if this one has staying power. We'll check back in about a month. Says here, Jack here goes, don't even remember the last time a new song hit me like this. Be ashamed for this anthem if this anthem went absolutely viral. And that is them again echoing to their base. Look, we have a new trophy. We have a new scapegoat. We have someone we can throw into the left's face. We're going to support them and make them as useful as they can possibly be until they're not useful anymore. And then we have here the Blaze going, Oliver Anthony soars to number one on iTunes with Blue Collar Anthem. Rolling Stone tries to trivialize viral sensation as a right wing screed with Reagan era talking points. I mean, it is. It is. I mean, you can't really trivialize it. You're just saying the truth. That's what it is. Um, but yeah, this is exactly where we are. I want to talk a bit about this before we go back to Oliver Anthony. I have a little bit more to say about him. But do conservatives really have an empathy deficit? This is what social science says. And this is from the Salon, and this is from, I guess, like last year sometime. But instead of talking through all of the points in here, you can go check this out if you want. I want to talk about my personal experience with empathy and conservatives. Now, again, I've spoken about this quite often here, that a vast majority of my family, I live in Virginia as well, vast majority of my family is conservative. And it's been a struggle over the years with them because they don't really understand empathy. They think they do, but it's not even conscious sometimes. Sometimes it just happens. Like if you look at their Facebook posts, they'll share something that is obviously inappropriate. They don't see any empathy in it. They don't understand. They don't get it. And I just, I wish they could sit back and understand that oppression, it's okay to feel empathy for people who are oppressed, and you don't have to have the same experience as them. It doesn't have to, like, no one's asking you to go or trying to shame you for simply not living their experience. You understanding how someone feels or the position they're in or the life that they've lived, you understanding that doesn't make you a weak person. It doesn't mean that you have to go, oh, well, you had it bad, I had it bad too. That's not necessary. That's not important in the conversation unless that person says, hey, do you understand what I'm saying? And you can use some of your own personal experience to add to that. But it doesn't always have to be that. Anytime the conservative community has a response to some sort of social movement or something that a marginalized group says, hey, we need to bring attention to this because it is affecting our community. Anytime that happens and they respond with, oh yeah, but what about this? And it's about their community. It's like this weird sort of oppressive behavior that I don't know if they understand that it is oppressive, that they're doing it consciously, or if it's just them feeling like they have to sort of be the topic of the conversation as well. They can't give any room or space to marginalized people who are experiencing any sort of issues or problems or systemic things in their society or community problems, things that don't even have anything to do with them. There could be things existing within a community as a problem that has nothing to do with conservatives, but they'll jump in and go, oh, but what about this? They don't empathize with people. You know, it reminds me of like, oh, well, I had to walk uphill in a foot of snow with no shoes or whatever. We want the world to be better for the people that come after us. That is, should be, I say that should be the intention of everybody living in this world, is that we put things in place to help people who need it. That is the world we should be living in, that we want to help people that need it. We don't want people to feel bad because they need help. That's fucking awful. It's just fucking awful. And I'm laughing because it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous that that is the way it is now. If you are a marginalized community and you're like, hey, we need help, you can't really, rely on conservatives to go, we understand, we empathize with you. What can we do to fix the problem? No, what will happen is they will come up with a problem in their community that they think is like the problem you have and go, you should just suck it up and deal with it because we have to deal with it too. It becomes some sort of like measure of a person, how much you've had to struggle. And a lot of times it's wrapped up in religion and conservative values, which again doesn't matter when you're talking about other communities that are not part of your community. They're not conservative and they're not religious. They may be a completely different religion altogether. But I also want to talk about Farmville, which is where Oliver Anthony is from. Now, this is something that may not be automatically known for people that don't live in the United States, or maybe even some people in the United States. But there was a Farmville civil rights demonstration that began in July 1963. And this was a result of the public school system um, being closed since 1959. And the reason why they did that is because of desegregation. So in 1959, when Prince Edward County was ordered by a federal judge to integrate its schools, the county opted to shut down the schools rather than comply. So instead of saying, hey, we want everyone to go to schools together, and we're just going to shut down education for everyone. This is where the whole conservative empathy thing comes into place, because their hate is so much more powerful than their love. What I mean by that is that they would rather cut off a hand rather than extend one. If they can extend a helping hand to someone, they would rather say, I don't want a hand at all if my hand is going to be used to help someone else. They don't care if people that they love, if there's two people they love in a group of 10 people, and those other 8 people are people they don't agree with, they would rather allow those people to go down with the ship along with the other 8 people they don't agree with than to help all 10 people. That's essentially what it is. It says here, the Prince Edward County School Board used state tuition grants to open private schools for white children. It left black children without any schools at all rather than desegregate the public school system. This is the area that Oliver Anthony comes from. This is the culture of that area. And I would assume, because of the lyrics of his song and the things he's talking about, that a lot of these old values, they would call them, have sort of stuck around, and they've permeated within his community for a long time. And I want to point out, where I live in Virginia is on the coastline. It's much different than where he lives. Farmville is a very different area than, the eastern part of the state. But we still have some people that probably feel this way. I mean, it would be very silly to think we don't have people that feel this way where we are. It just doesn't take over everything. And I feel like maybe the idea that desegregation is becoming more and more prominent, even, what are we now? This is the 1950s. So all these years later, we still have people who are upset about this. I don't know. I don't know where to go with it in terms of what's going to happen here. It is going to be interesting to keep an eye on this Oliver Anthony situation to see if this holds up. How long is he going to be important to the conservatives? Are they going to be talking about him next week, or is he going to be forgotten about? Like Jason Aldean's song. What's going to happen with this? We'll have to wait and see. But what I want to say here is thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast and chatting with me for a bit, or listening to me chat. You guys can chat in the comments here or on social media. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, Eric here from @EricDebunks on YouTube, Social Brain Rot Podcast, episode number 3. This one is about conservative empathy and Oliver Anthony. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see everyone in the next episode. Take care.